Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. In attendance this evening is myself, Laura Belsky, John Franco, Frederick Brookhouse, Felix Garcia, Keith Gray, Aaron Carroll, John Morrissey, and Melanie Jarzembowski. Jarzembowski. Thank you. Addie is excused. Evening. Are there any citizens' comments this evening? Any citizens? I don't see any citizens here this evening. Okay. Are there any supervisor announcements? Seeing none. Chairman comments, two things. First, I want to let you know that I gave Supervisor Brookhouse permission to wear a hat. He has a medical condition. So I told him it's okay to wear a hat this evening. So no offense to anybody else. October 2nd, can everybody make it to the October 2nd meeting? Because I would like to schedule that specific meeting for our budget review. If you cannot make the meeting, then we have to schedule a special meeting, and I would prefer not to do that.
I'll be here. October what?
2nd. I think it's our regular Wednesday meeting.
Okay, thank you. If that works.
Okay. John? Good.
Mhm.
Okay, on to number 6. Election of a second vice chair for Judiciary and Law. I did reach out to Supervisor Gray and asked him if he would be interested, unless there is someone else that would like to throw their hat in. If not, I need a motion and a second. Touche. So,
move, Mr. Gray. A second.
second, all the youth and governance, how do you vote?
Second, or I agree.
Uh,
I'll abstain.
okay. And rest of the committee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Second Chair.
All right.
Okay, and then reviewing the minutes, and I have to say, Alyssa, fantastic job on the new minutes format. It hopefully didn't take you 2 days.
No.
Okay, good,
And
good.
it didn't take too long to read either, I might add.
Yeah, that's nice. So what we're doing going forward is we're doing actionable items on the agenda and not word for word verbatim minutes. If you want to know word for word verbatim, you can watch the video. Okay, do I have a motion to approve minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Youth and governance?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it passes. Now I have the pleasure, Judge, if you would have a seat. Honorable Judge David Wilk, Kenosha County Treatment Court overview, and he is welcome to talk about civil guardianship, whatever he'd like to discuss about his court.
You should have you raise your right hand, Judge. You're gonna tell us the truth and nothing but the truth.
But I have a better story to tell you. Thank you for letting me come and speak with you. I'm the head of the Kenosha County Treatment Court. I'm also the head of the Kenosha County Security Committee. My role in the courts, I'm one of 8 judges, and my rotation is that I handle 50% of all the civil cases in Kenosha. I handle all of the mental commitments. I handle all of the probate matters. I handle all of the guardianship matters. And I also do 2 days of criminal court. One of the things that I was most excited about was a little over 2 years ago, I was given the opportunity to take over the treatment court. And it's something I lobbied for about 6 years because I'm so convinced on the correctness of its mission. Its mission is to enhance public safety, enhance personal recovery, and enhance accountability. And it's through extensive supervision, evidence-based treatment, and cost-effective services. But I kind of want to talk to you about it more in a 10,000-foot view. So people look at treatment courts sometimes and they say, oh, it's coddling criminals. But I'll tell you that every single person who's gone through our program has told us that they wished they had gone through straight probation or they had gone to prison, because those programs are easier. This is for every single person who goes through this program. They've been convicted. They've been convicted of most likely a felony. They're sitting with an imposed and stayed prison sentence over their head. They have 180 days of conditional jail time that I've imposed on them at the sentence, which means that I can take that 180 days and break it off and use it as a sanction as needed. And they're going to be on probation for 3 years, at least. And during those 3 years, they're going to have random UAs at least twice a week. They are going to have intensive treatment. They are going to have work employment services. These are people who have substance abuse disorder, have committed nonviolent crimes, and typically have mental health issues. As you might guess, take a person who commits a crime because they have an anger management issue and you throw them in jail for 90 days. Guess what happens when they come out after 90 days and you haven't addressed it?
They're more angry.
They're more angry and they're going to do the same thing. And when you take a person who has a substance abuse disorder and criminogenic thinking, the recidivism rate, how often they come back into the court system. If you look at a 9-year look back, if they have no services, the 9-year look back is about 80%. 80% of those people at 9 years have reoffended. And now you look at it for the people who have had some kind of treatment. Is it great? No. Is it perfect? No, but it's probably about 60%. What does that mean? It means that you're doing something that's good. It's also really cost effective. So rough numbers, and these are rough numbers. Costs about $700 a month to put a person in treatment court. Costs about $7,000 a month to put them in prison. So we get better results. It costs less. We get less recidivism, which means the community is safer. And we end up with people who are working and contributing and have positive outcomes. To give you an idea about our program, we have 15 participants. That's capacity. We are full up and take anybody else. Partly because of money. We just don't have enough money. We don't have enough service providers who can provide these services to people. So there are people who would otherwise qualify and they're going to be on the prison track because we just can't provide them services. It's a team approach. It's led by a judge. The team is made up of a treatment court coordinator, which is a county position. Then we have participants from the Department of Corrections, Probation and Parole, the DA's office, the Public Defender's office, treatment providers and recovery coaches, CCS, which is Comprehensive Community Services, which is kind of like the quarterback for services. We have representatives of NAMI, and we have representatives of the Sheriff's Department. The eligibility for people who are involved in this program, these are high-risk, high-need people. Generally, you have to think about success in a treatment court differently than you think about it in the real world. If we have better than 50% success with our participants, we're choosing the wrong people. We're choosing people who are going to be successful even without our program. Because these are high-risk, high-need. They have moderate to severe substance abuse disorder as diagnosed. They're at least 18 years old. They're going to get at least 36 months probation, and there's no violent offenses. So a lot of times people have this concept in their mind that people are going out and they're raping and pillaging, and then they go into treatment court and they're getting a pass. We're very selective on the people who we can take. We can't take violent offenders. Typically, we're not taking somebody who has a weapons charge. Typically, we're not taking those cases that are possession with intent to distribute. Possession with intent cases and weapons cases are in a case-by-case basis, but if there's a violent offense in the past, in the history, they're legally ineligible for our program. This is all post-conviction. One of the reasons that it's post-conviction is because when I talked about the team approach, we all have finite resources, but we all recognize that it's a good program. So when we team up, for instance, with DOC, Department of Corrections, has a world of money that we don't have. So they can do things like residential treatment. They can do things like probation holds. they can provide levels of service that we can't. And so by us all working collaboratively together, we're kind of maximizing the sources and resources that we can use. A lot of people ask about jail as a sanction. You know, can I send people to jail? And ironically, I sent a person to jail today from our program. Jail is not an appropriate response to a lapse or relapse. I want to say that again. So a person who is using, that's not a jailable offense because that's a treatment concern. Now, it can become a substance or safety concern. If, for instance, you have somebody who lapses or relapses and they are driving kids around, that's a safety concern that may require the person being jailed. The person who went to jail today violated court rules. This is post-conviction, right? I'm the sentencing court. They come to me, I sentence them, and I name it. I say, as a condition of your probation, I'm ordering you to cooperate with treatment court. And if they violate with the treatment court rules, then they're violating my court rules. So the person today, what they did was they went to Illinois. They went to Gurney Mills. Guess what? You're on probation. You're a felon. You can't cross state lines without a pass. You doing so is probably a crime in and of itself. And guess what? You got high and you went and you stole something from a clothing store. They didn't press charges, so it's not going to be a revocable offense. But I determined that that was a violation of my orders, and so today that person went to jail. We work on a program of incentives and sanctions. Incentives can be recognition. It can be saying, great job. It can be saying today, celebrated a woman who has not been sober for 20 plus years, and today was 62 days sober. And so we applaud that and we recognize it. We have a system that you earn marks, and marks are for perfection. You have to have a perfect week in order to have a mark. You're late for a meeting by 5 minutes, it's not perfection. You don't get a mark. And so you recognize perfection and you learn how to have those conversations with the participants and teach them that, for instance, details matter. It doesn't matter that you almost did everything you were supposed to do. It matters that you did everything that you were supposed to do, that you went where you were supposed to go and you did it when you were supposed to do it. Sanctions can range from getting called out in court, assignments, community service. We make people go and sit at KCDC for part of the day or all the day because we want to remind them that being on the outside of the bars is better than being behind the bars. They can go to jail. They can be terminated from the program. If they're terminated from the program, it may trigger DOC to revoke them. Remember when I talked about that sanction that imposed in state sentence? They go to prison. If DOC revokes them, they don't go back and argue that they get a better sentence. I've already put in place the sentence. I've already imposed however many years or months of initial confinement they have. So in Wisconsin's criminal justice system, you get what's called a bifurcated sentence. That means that for every sentence, there's going to be an initial confinement and an extended supervision. So if you say 10 years, 10 years doesn't really mean 10 years because 10 years is probably going to be 5 years of initial confinement. That's the actual prison part, and 5 years of extended supervision. Everybody who's in this program has at least a year and a half of actual prison time hanging over them. Some of them have more. We had a guy who successfully completed the program. He had 20 years over his head. It's good incentive to comply with what I'm asking you to do if the alternative is going to prison for 20 years. It's a 5-phase program. And as you can imagine, and the sheriff's department representatives know this better than I do. A lot of the people who are coming in this program, they're coming in having just been in jail for an extended period of time. So they had this long history of use. They get arrested. Takes them a while to make their way through the system. They've spent 6 months in jail and now they're in front of me and I'm putting them into this program and they're looking at me like, holy cow, what's going on? So the first phase of this program is called the orientation phase and it's 8 weeks long and it's basically just to try to get them out and keep them alive. One of the terrible things about opiates in particular is that your body develops a certain response to them. And so if a person comes out of jail and goes back and uses at the same amount that they used at right before they went to jail, they're going to die. And that has nothing to do with fentanyl. Fentanyl is a whole different world. But if they just go back to their same amounts, they're going to die. And so for those first 8 weeks, we're trying to get them adjusted to this idea of sober living and this idea that they're going to have drops and that they're going to try to have hope. So that's the first phase. In order to get out of the first phase, you have to at least have 2 weeks clean. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but imagine you've gone 20 years of using and now you're going 2 weeks clean. That's pretty amazing. Next phase is stabilization. It's 13 weeks long. And at each stage, there's 5 stages. At each stage, we're giving them greater responsibilities. So you have to go to groups now. So you get into your second stage, you still have to go to court every week. You have to do UAs twice a week. You have to be 4 weeks clean in order to advance. It's 13 weeks long. The action stage is phase 3. Now you have to do 6 weeks clean. You have to establish a payment plan for your financial obligations. You have to be working towards work or school, get a sponsor. You're developing your recovery community. You're in court weekly and you're still dropping UAs. Now that thing about 6 weeks clean, when a person, if they miss a UA, however many weeks they have, goes back down to 0, start over. So there's a real incentive for them to be able to be accountable. In the program, if you miss a UA, it counts as a positive UA. But I always tell them it's worse than a positive UA because I don't know what I'm dealing with. If you go back and you're using and you drop positive on your UA, at least I know what kind of issues I'm dealing with. If it's a missed UA and there's no information, not only do we not have the data, but you're getting sanctioned for it. Ultimately, there's a maintenance phase and a continued wellness phase, and then commencement can be ultimately at fastest is 15 months. Never seen anybody do it in 15 months. We have a person in the program right now who's probably going to do it in 15 months. Her name is Heidi, and kind of an interesting story. She was in such a bad place. She went to, she committed some property crimes and went to her, she was on probation, went to her probation agent and said, I want to be revoked. Send me to prison. I got 4 years hanging over my head. Send me to prison. And the probation agent said, you might be a good person for drug court. And somehow the light turned on. Next year, she'll be 1 year in the program. And of the 1 year in the program, she has 51 weeks clean out of 51 weeks. She has 0 violations in 51 weeks. I agree. It is almost impossible to do that. Another guy that we recently had a graduation for was a guy by the name of Chris. Chris had 26 years of straight use. Got in the program, I had to throw him in jail twice. Ironically, I was on vacation 1 week and I didn't know what to do about drug court, treatment court. So I asked Judge Mary Wagner, who was recently retired, if she would pinch hit. So Mary came in and talked to Chris, and he got this new voice, he got this new story, and that was the moment that it turned around for him. And a month ago, he graduated after 26 years of use. When he got into the program, he was functionally illiterate. During the program, he learned to read, he learned to write, he assists others, and he's clean. Do we have bad stories too? Sure. Absolutely. Remember that 40 to 50 number? That's what our reality is. These are people who are in bad places. One of the interesting things that recently happened was we were talking to an employer, county employer, who said that they really prefer hiring people who are in our program. And we thought, what a strange thing to tell us. I said, why is that? And they said, because your participants are dropping. So I know they're not using. None of my other employees are dropping UAs, so I don't know if they're using or not. And that person has hired a number of people. You know, one of the biggest things that we're challenged with is fighting stigmas. You know, we're not coddling criminals. We're getting better outcomes. It's cheaper. It makes the community safer. There's less recidivism, but we do need to redefine what success means. We need to make sure that we are providing as much services as we can. I mean, the idea that there are people who are going to go to prison because we're stuck at the number 15 because we just don't have the money or the room to fit them in is challenging. One of the other things that's real important about this is it's not just feel-good stuff, right? It's evidence-based, so it's changing. We're learning more about brain chemistry. We're learning more about how people learn, how people process. We're learning that typically you need to have use plus genetics plus circumstances in order to have a person have a substance use disorder. And that's why some people can use and never go the addiction path. And some people, things can be gateways. And part of it is because of their circumstances. When you have a person who has housing insecurity and food insecurity, and the only people they know in their life are all users, we shouldn't be surprised when those people get out of jail and they go back to using, because that's their lifestyle. So we have to be able to be creative in looking at the way we're challenging these things. It's some of the best judging I've ever done, because you have to be, you have to make a balance between compassion and accountability, and figuring out how to do that is so intellectually fulfilling as a judge. I mean, in the real world as a judge, in 95% of the cases that I do, what I say goes. In drug court, I have to interact with them. And it isn't just about me. And in fact, you have to take the me out of the conversation. When I'm talking to somebody, what I think about that situation isn't as important as what they think about that situation and how it either advanced or hurt their recovery. And so it's been such a delightful challenge. And I appreciate you all letting me come in and talk about it. I hope you appreciate the passion that I have for it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I will tell you that there's a whole world of the nuts and bolts of this. You know, it's TAD grant money that has a pass through the county, and there's a match and all those things. I don't have any idea how that stuff works. And there are way better people at the county who can answer those questions for you. But to kind of give you a judicial perspective, that's what I was hoping to do.
Is Carrie Voss part of your team?
Yes, she is. She is an expert on all those issues. You know, it's like a duck, right? Yeah, it looks calm on the surface, but things are going madly below the water. I have a weird little wedge of responsibility, and that is that I run the team, but I'm not the only person on the team. I am very careful to stay in my lane. When we're talking, for instance, about the money side of it, that's not my lane. When we're talking about the treatment side of it, that's not my lane. I got a degree in philosophy. I went to law school. I don't know anything about what the proper mental health treatment protocols are. I know to ask questions, and I know how to be intellectually curious, but I let my team do the smart stuff, and then I go out into the courtroom and I talk to the participants and I engage with them. So we're really lucky to have wonderful people on the team. Yeah.
Judge, a couple of things. So it's been a while for me. There used to be a drug treatment court and a veterans court. Are they combined now, or do we still have a veterans court?
So complex question. And the reason that I say that is that what we also had was we had a mental health court and a behavioral drug court. And we combined those two into what I do now. The veterans court that we use, we share with Racine. So Racine runs a veterans court. Kenosha doesn't run one, but Racine allows Kenosha eligible people to participate in the Racine program.
How much does family play into the success of these participants?
Again, a great but complex question. And the reason that I say that is that they can be the greatest source of fill in the blank here. They can be the greatest source of challenge, and they can be the greatest source of support. You can imagine that there are a lot of family members who are eager to see their family member involved in this, but they've also been burned for years. And so they look at it and they say, you know, I support you, I love you, I want you to do well. You can't burn me again. And so reestablishing that trust is one of the things that we also have to address. A person who has stability in their house, if they have stability in their home, we often have to tell people, you need to learn how to love people in your life, but love them from a distance if they're not going to be healthy for your recovery. And a lot of times those people who aren't healthy for the recovery are family members. Now, for a lot of times, they're also sources of support.
Two more quick questions that people ask. What happens to the sentence when the people make it through the court? And the second one, you see better success in younger versus older. I've heard people say, well, why are we putting somebody that's been an addict for 26 years in there when they should be working with the young people?
I'll answer the second one first. The person who's been an addict for 26 years and has been through all the other services, we know that stuff doesn't work for them. You know, sometimes the DA's office will say, oh, we don't want to include this person because they failed on probation 5 times. Well, then why are we going to put them on probation the 6th time? Why are we going to do something that we know isn't going to work? What happens with the sentence is that it's still the sentence. Once they are convicted, they are convicted. You know, we've toyed with other models, and some of the models that are out there include what's called a pre-conviction model. And the pre-conviction model says we're going to provide these services to people, and then at the end of it, the case may be dismissed or the felony may become a misdemeanor. We quite frankly just don't have the resources to do that because we need DOC to be involved. And for DOC to be involved, it has to be a conviction. So like LaCrosse County has enough money that they can do it as a pre-conviction model so that they can say to somebody, you've committed this act, it's a felony. If you're successful, it'll be a misdemeanor. That is a carrot versus the stick. What I can do to somebody is say, you've committed this act, you're going to have this felony that's going to follow you. But oh, by the way, you're either going to go to prison or you won't go to prison. It is certainly a carrot. It's just not a similar carrot. But once they're convicted, they're convicted. And one of the things that I didn't say, most of the people who get off, who graduate from the program, they're still on probation for an extended period of time. So they're still getting dropped by DOC, doing UAs. And they're also typically on probation. When I order probation, I order that if they still have restitution to a victim, probation will continue. And so they may be on probation until they've made their victim whole.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the funding, if the county somehow could magically find the funding, but that doesn't mean the services that you need are available as well. I mean,
If I had a magic wand, there would be something that the county would do to start looking towards residential treatment. We don't have residential treatment in Kenosha for persons, which is a heightened level of care. And that's the biggest hole in what we have. I mean, we run lean and mean. To give you guys an idea, when we have a graduation, I'm buying the pizza. We were just informed that we can't use our grant money to give. When people graduate or reach certain milestones, we may give them a $5 gift card. We can't give them gift cards anymore from our grant money. So guess what? I buy the gift cards. We give them, when they have a good week, they get a mark. We talked about for perfection. And when you get a mark, you then get to pick something out of this basket, and it'll have things like toothbrushes or candy or things like that. That's stuff that comes out of us, out of the participants. So it would be wonderful if we started even small and had some level of assistance, ultimately leading up to if we had some kind of housing assistance. You as a county board know better than anyone that there's a housing crisis in Kenosha, that you take people who are fresh out of incarceration and, you know, as wonderful as Shalom is, it's not a long-term residential option. As wonderful as the care is for care center for stabilization, it's not a long-term option. And so you were asking about family. So for some of these people, the instability is their family, but that's the only housing that they have. And so we take them from the jail and we send them back to their family, which is not a source of stability. It makes it that much harder because we don't have those types of resources.
Well, personally, I applaud you for doing it because some judges don't have the compassion or the passion to do this. I think it's one of the greatest programs we do.
How often are the UAs done, and are they scheduled, or are they
Random.
random? Okay.
They're random, at least 2 a week, sometimes more.
Mm, 2 a week.
At least 2 a week.
Oh.
And we do them through the health department, including weekend drops. So they do weekend drops. They have to drop, so that they're on what's called the color line. They get up in the morning and then by 6 a.m. they have to call the color line. And if their color pops up, they have to drop by 10 or 10:30. We've moved it to adjust for the bus schedule. And they have to drop if their color comes up.
I can
Well-
see why it's challenging for some people.
It is, well, and it requires some flexibility on our part. For instance, we have a guy who has a wonderful union job now. So what we have done is we've made arrangements so that he can drop on the days that his color comes up, because he's at work by the time he finds out, he can drop at 4 o'clock. So we make arrangements to be somewhat flexible to meet people's, what we say is we meet them where they're at. It's very important that a person has employment and is able to provide for themselves. So we don't want to discourage that. So they're doing drops. They don't know when it's going to be. They think they have some predictions as to when it's going to be, but sometimes it'll be 2 days in a row. And then they think, oh, good, I'm good for a week. Well, guess what? It might be the 3rd day. So it's truly random.
Questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Judge, what particular drug or drugs are most of the residents addicted to? Or is it a variety of all of the
They're
above?
addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
So, so I've learned a lot in talking to people that sometimes you'll say to a person, well, I went to this party and you did great. You were over the holidays. You know, holidays are a big deal because that's when people used to party. And so now they're learning sober lifestyles, right? So they're going to the 4th of July, but they're not drinking or doing drugs this time. This is their first time at the 4th of July. So Jim, how was it? And he says, well, it was great. I said, well, were people drinking there? And he'd say, well, alcohol wasn't my thing. So for some users, they're very specific as to what their drug of choice was.
Mhm.
And others would take anything just to get high. And so, so it's hard to characterize it. I would say that the biggest abuse is pharmaceuticals. I would say that we see more people who are Xanax, Oxy, those types of things. We are very effective at treating opiate abuse. There's great medically assisted treatments, whether it's methadone or Vivitrol or Suboxone, all these medicines that really smart people have figured out how to manage some of the cravings side of it. There's no real great treatments for meth. We just don't have great treatment for meth. And the thing that is hardest for us probably to deal with is alcoholism. Mostly because it's so prevalent. It's easy to tell somebody, don't go to a restaurant if they're serving meth. It's harder,
Yeah.
it's harder to say to them, you know, only go to restaurants that don't have people drinking.
Yeah.
And so there's this constant reminder, there's this constant trigger. And so there's lots of options for us with alcohol, but that is one of the hardest for us to.
So we're talking
treat.
legal and illegal drugs.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I wasn't trying to be flippant about it, but the fentanyl is an enormous issue. It's an enormous issue, and it's not, you know, people have this image that it's, you know, the person in the dark corner of some park someplace shooting up and It's 55-year-old grandpas. It's 28-year-old college students. It's professionals. It's people who are doing it for the first time. It's longtime users. And they're getting caught up in whatever they're taking, and it could be a pharmaceutical. It could be they think they're snorting cocaine. They could be smoking heroin. All of these things, and they encounter a fentanyl and they die. And it's it is outrageous. Tragic.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So you answered one of my questions. 15 months is the fastest, most are longer. But I was curious, you said 15 people are in the program. Is that like a rolling 15? People are getting out, people are coming in, and I'm just trying to figure out how many new participants per year do you think you might have
So
in graduations?
we just added 2 because we just graduated 2. So it's sort of now rolling. Now that we've reached 15, we were at about a dozen, and so we had room. But now that we're at 15, it'll be a rolling. And in fact, just today we were discussing our newly created, this is our participant handbook, which if anybody is interested, I'm happy to both leave a copy and print copies for people. We had to come up with a wait list program because now we have a wait list. And how do you prioritize people? And how do you tell somebody who is otherwise qualified, sit in jail for another 3 months because maybe we'll have an opening? So right now it's a rolling 15. Now that we've reached 15, I can look at it and I can say, Heidi, who I just talked about earlier, she's in phase 5, and there's another participant who's in phase 5. Those, when they graduate, we'll bring in 2 new, and so then it'll start again. So there's always people who are hopefully advancing and graduating, so that there's always room to add people.
Okay, thank you.
And I would presume that there's people that fail out, right, Jeff?
Yes.
Where
Yeah.
that position can then be filled as well.
Right, so a person may leave the program. If a person misses 3 court hearings, they're considered absconded, and they're terminated from the program. They can be terminated from the program. There's a specific way that happens. It typically happens when a person is given what's called the last chance contract, which says, look, we can't keep having these same conversations. Part of this program requires you to be sober, and you've used now for the last 8 weeks. So what's your intent? We may give you a last chance contract, which means that we don't think that this is a program that's working for either of us. And if that happens, they may be terminated. There's also what's called a person can be terminated from the program because they've reached maximum benefit. For instance, a person may run out of probation. Because it's a condition of my sentence, if they complete probation, I no longer have the authority to keep them in drug court. Now, how could that happen? Let's say that a person gets picked up for something else in another county and they are held in jail for 6 months somewhere else. I lose that 6 months. And so then they get out and they come back to us. I might not have enough time on probation for them to be able to complete the program. So they could terminate without graduation.
Anything else?
You just mentioned that one of the largest or the most cases are pharmaceuticals or opiate-based funds. And we've just received a tremendous amount of funds as a settlement from that. I mean, is there any correlation or any, ability to use the funds to help with this? Because I think this is like a direct,
It is.
this is like why the funds I think would be.
And I vote yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, and I think, when we have, Patty in front of us Thursday night, tomorrow night, perhaps we ask her at that time, because they're deciding from a human, services standpoint, what to do with that opioid money, and if it would mean helping, people in your treatment court, we should definitely look at that.
now the unfortunate thing is it doesn't help all because it's very specific
Yeah,
in the use of it, but I would think that,
well, the majority he said was
Right.
opioid, so,
right,
so let's remember that tomorrow night.
And most people who are in the program are polysubstance. So they have had involvement with more than one type of substance.
Sure.
And any help that can be provided is appreciated. I mean, it is, we're doing great with what we have, but we could do greater if we had more. And, I think everybody says that, but, the metrics that we show just, we get better outcomes and it's cheaper.
Well, definitely, the outcomes are right, but it's cheaper for the county too,
Yeah.
because you said it costs 7,000 to incarcerate, where it's costing very little
Well,
in comparison.
and the other part of it is that it's costless for the county because they're not going out and committing crimes, right?
Mhm.
They're not stealing from your garage and they're not stealing from the grocery store that causes them to raise the prices for everybody. So, if you believe in the concept of trickle down, that the fact that we're taking these people and cutting down on recidivism has a direct cost saving to the county, but it has an indirect cost saving to everybody who's in the county because they're not committing crimes. They're not operating vehicles while intoxicated. They're not causing accidents. They're not losing their children because they can't parent them. So DCFS is having to step in and provide foster care. I mean, just the kind of big web that is affected by this is never ending.
We will talk with our finance director tomorrow night, and then I'll follow back up with you.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Judge?
I have a
Yes.
couple of questions.
Oh, boy.
I was like a little confused. Are like the members people who are like strictly in jail and then relapse, or just anyone addicted?
So it has to be people who committed a crime. They have to be over 18. They have to be county residents. They have to be diagnosed with a substance abuse disorder. So what happens for some people is they'll apply. We probably get 3 to 5 applications per week. And the vast majority of them are rejected for a number of reasons. Either they have criminal history that included violence, or the DA's office, by the way, I didn't mention this, DA's office has the absolute ability to veto any participant. If they believe that it is not in the community's interest that this person be provided to be in this program, they have absolute veto power.
Aren't they part of the team?
They are part of the team. And it's a challenge sometimes because, we refer to them as repeat customers. Most of these people have had run-ins with the law previously. And so if you've had run-ins with the law previously, you've had run-ins with specific district attorneys previously.
Mm-hmm.
And so they say, I remember this son of a gun. He was a pain to deal with. Why should I cut him a break? And so we kind of have to remind them, and there's a member of the DA's office on the team who is also a great advocate for the program. Remind them that if you provided a service to somebody unsuccessfully in the past, why do you think providing them the same service is going to give you a different outcome? I threw you in jail for a year and you came out and you committed another crime, so therefore I'm going to throw you in jail for a year again. Well, that doesn't seem to be logical. So in answer to your question, these are people who are otherwise legally eligible. So they have to have committed a crime. They have to have a substance abuse disorder. They have to not have any disqualifying conditions. They then get transferred to me. And if they enter a plea, they're pleading guilty. And they don't know if I'm going to let them into the program or not, because I'm not part of the negotiations. But if I sentence them, I make it a condition of their probation that they participate in treatment court. So they all have substance issues and they all have criminal convictions.
Okay, then one of my other questions is, I think you kind of answered it. So like they don't have a facility. So do the workers just like come to their house, or is there like meetings or?
So yes and no. So probation and parole, the Department of Corrections does home visits. So they will go unannounced and announced and look at this person's living arrangement to ensure that their living arrangement is acceptable. We also have service providers like therapists. And so these participants will go to the therapist's offices. They will meet with the treatment court coordinator at the job center. They'll come to court with me every Wednesday. Oh, by the way, treatment court is open court. So if anybody's ever interested in seeing what we do, you can come any Wednesday from 3:30 to about 4:45 and you can see what we do. It's open court. The way that it works is that everybody's there. We call them up in front of the, to a podium. It is all recorded by the court reporter through the DAR system. And we're talking to them about how their week is. And we're talking to them about those things that they have to work on. We're sanctioning them. We're incentivizing them. I saw Joe Potenti was here earlier. He's sometimes there to take pictures if we have if we are having a good a day where we're graduating someone. So it's kind of a combination. We're a big county. When people have to get to drug to do drops in the UAs, they live out in Trevor or Twin Lakes. It's hard for them if they don't have, as you can imagine, most of these people don't have licenses, something that they have to work on that we assist them with. They have to make arrangements for getting places, and that can be a challenge. Buses, bus routes, holiday bus routes, nighttime bus routes, early morning weekend bus routes, all these things that we take for granted, they don't. Because if you got to get a drop in, you got to get to the bus. And guess what? If it's 10 blocks to walk to the bus stop, well, it's 10 blocks to walk to the bus stop. And our position on that is, well, then I guess you better leave earlier because you have certain requirements. There is accountability.
Any other questions? Yes.
One, and this just, it's fascinating. And I'm sure tomorrow I might have way more questions than I can think of right now, but.
You know where to find me.
Yeah, right. When I think of court, I think of obviously somebody standing before you and quite often they're represented.
Sure.
But it sounds to me like that's not the case, right? Once they're in front of you, it's kind of a one-on-one. There's not another party that represents them.
So I say this with love, you're right and you're wrong. And the reason that I say that is because we're a post-conviction model. They're there with lawyers for the sentencing. They're there with lawyers when they're before me for that first time. But one of the things that they agree to when they sign up for treatment court is they're waiving their right to have their lawyer present for the subsequent post-conviction hearings. So after that point, they don't have people present unless we go to termination. If we're terminating someone, then they have rights, substantive due process rights, and a lawyer is appointed to represent their interests through the public defender's office for the termination. But once we are post-conviction, they are on their own. Thank you. You have more questions?
Two more questions.
All right.
So I know you said you don't like the financial aspect, but would you happen to know if like the participants have to pay out of pocket or like does insurance cover that?
That is a fantastic question. So when they're going through CCS, they're Medicaid eligible. So that's how much of the programming is paid. Couple things. If a person tests positive, right? If they test positive in UA and they say, darn it all, it's not right. I didn't use, the test is wrong. We can send it out for confirmation. And it costs $25 and they have to pay it if it comes back and it was right. So they do have some skin in the game when it comes to that. They also have to, as one of their goals for phasing up, they have to make arrangements for a payment plan for their court obligations, right? When somebody gets, so yesterday was supplemental court where I do criminal court and I fined a guy $50. And he said, well, how much is that $50 fine actually? It was $516. So if you get a $50 fine, it's actually $516. So all of these people have court obligations and they have to make arrangements for those court obligations. They are either covered by insurance, private or public, or they're private paying for their services. And some services are provided by the county.
Okay, then my last question is just what is UA?
Urinalysis. Testing of someone's pee.
Okay.
Fine, are we gonna leave it on that note?
I gotta
That's perfect.
Any other questions?
Great questions.
Thank you, Judge Wilkie.
Thank you.
Appreciate you
I,
taking time to visit with us. It was very informative and I hope that I know you'll see me observing in court. I don't want to say in court, but observing in court. And I hope that you see everybody else on the committee.
Come on over. We're Wednesdays, courtroom's open. I'm 205. I'm the second floor opposite Judge Schrader's old courtroom. So the other ceremonial courtroom,
You said, what is it?
room 205.
205.
Yeah, I'm branch 5. So branch 5 is on the second floor. When you get out of the elevator or come up the stairs, it's right ahead of you.
And I will follow up with you on the financial aspects of the opioid lawsuit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Both my children. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You as well.
Okay, next.
I had a lot of questions.
Why didn't you ask?
Yeah, that was.
Review of chapter 8 licenses and permits. I'm not going to get into specifics about any cases. But I do want to talk about, I poured over the cabaret license, 8.02, not so much the activity control permit because that's more planning and development. But I went over with Council Cardamone, and there are several changes that need to be clarified or that need to be made. There's some competing statements in the ordinance. One that comes right off the top is regular licenses are automatically renewed by the Sheriff's Department. In a later paragraph, it says, no, it must come before judiciary and law. So we need to clean that up. We currently, I spoke with Clerk Reggie about the cabaret license, and automatic renewal of regular license is supposed to come before judiciary and law. But she said for as long as she's been with the county, it's automatically done by the Sheriff's Department. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. We just need some clarification on the ordinances to make sure that we understand when we get a cabaret license, we're following the rules. The other thing that jumped out at me was that if they're coming up for a regular license from a probation, they're not supposed to come prior to 60 days before it renews. So that there's enough time to see if they're following all of the laws. That's currently not happening. Sometimes they come 3 or 4 months beforehand. So we need to understand our ordinances that this committee is responsible for and make sure that we're following it. The other clarification for the cabaret license is, what is dusk? Everybody has their own interpretation of dusk. And I think that we need some clear language for the cabaret license on when people can operate, how long, the decibels where, those readings are taken. But also, how does the cabaret license different from a special event? Special event, they can just go to the clerk and get a special events license. It doesn't come before judiciary and law. So what I'm asking, if there are any of you that would like to work with me on cleaning up this ordinance, we'll then review it with Captain Klinkhammer and the rest of the Sheriff's Department leadership team, and then submit it to legislative so that we can get this ordinance cleaned up and passed.
I'm happy to help with that.
Sounds good. I think this really came to head last month at the PDAC committee when we had
It's pending legal, so I would be
Yes,
cautious. Yeah.
Right. I'm just gonna say that we had an application or an applicant come before us and want to, have events after dusk with outdoor amplified music, with smaller groups than an activity control license would require.
Mhm.
And I think that happens all the time in the city and the villages and stuff like that, but there's just not a good way, once a thorough review was done of this, to allow that to happen in the county, in the rural part of the county. And I think what's happened is that those events have just taken place throughout the years. And, it was kind of like no big deal until we get to a certain situation where there's close proximity. But I know of 2 establishments that kind of ran into this in the past 6 months that are like, wait a minute, what? We want to be able to do this outside. We know that there should be a way to be able to do that. So I
Right,
think,
and that's where I want to clean it up.
right. So I think from our standpoint, I think the challenge should be is how do we do it in a way that, you know, allows a certain use that is, you know, acceptable in other areas of the county, and yet still be, you know, neighborly and, you know,
Mhm.
fall within the bounds of the community, because some of the stuff we're talking about isn't like musical events that are like rock music. It's like, hey, we want to have a benefit for
Mhm.
a cancer person or something like
Right.
that. And we want to have a small group and, you know, outside in lighted areas. And it's like, I think all that stuff should be allowable and possible with, let's call it a special event permit or something like that for certain circumstances.
That states, like, a lot of the county events, some places don't have immediate neighbors. Other places have very, very close
Right.
neighbors. So I think we need to set some guidelines for that.
Right,
And so I told Council Cardamom to expect some changes. And so whoever wants to work on it with me, we can all be co-sponsors of it. But I think we need to address this because we need to understand our laws and we need to make sure that we as a committee and as county board are following our laws.
Is this something you can put on the agenda and we just go through it as a committee?
Sure, sure.
Do
Okay.
it that way.
Okay. I have I started a document too, and so I can, put that out for I don't want to do it at the budget meeting. That's the problem.
I don't think there's anything imminent right now.
No, because most of them are
That's right.
cycling down,
Hasn't,
yeah,
apparently hasn't been adjusted since or changed since,
2001,
so it's been 23 years.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Right.
I just want to make it, so it's clarification for us, for the sheriff's department, and it's not adding additional work on them as well. So all around. So that's what I wanted to bring up, Cabaret. If you haven't had the opportunity to read it, please do so. And, I'm interested in your feedback. Yes.
If we're gonna do this, can you have either Cardamom or somebody look at other counties that perhaps have ordinances that
Mhm.
would do this similar to our size? Again, as Aaron said, the cities are much different in how we handle them.
I was looking at Green Bay's myself, so,
But again, I
But I'll have them
don't know if city,
yeah.
but if there's county like Brown County,
yeah,
Sheen County, or my county.
Yep.
Direct our thing, that can be provided to us too.
okay, good.
and have someone here like Joe, and so we can ask him.
Perhaps we have a working session on it,
Yeah,
so we can,
exactly.
in November when we get it done,
Yeah.
so plan on that then for November. Okay. Any other comments on this cabaret license? Okay, now we have the sheriff's office, Sheriff Zerner. I asked, to have standing agenda items and, so for operations review updates, law enforcement corrections, and I was very clear that if there's really nothing to update, then we would just show a no update on here. But I think we're all interested in understanding what your opportunities are, what your challenges are, or any upcoming events.
How are you?
I'm good.
Standing items, like dozens of them. So obviously we have a buffet of command staff behind me that will be jumping in and out. I'd like to talk, I'd like to know what you want to know about really, because I could talk like nauseam as everyone here knows.
Well, I just want to know what some of your current challenges are, or are there potential opportunities we could look into? Like if you look at corrections, what are some of your challenges there right now? Is it staffing? Is it, what are the issues? So,
I hear you.
That's what I-
Already.
yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Well, I'll tell you about staffing right away. We're down 9 right now. 6 at deputy sheriff, 2 clerical, and 1 at ARS, which is a booking clerk, admissions really specialist. We're even at correctional officer, DSO, direct supervision officer. So we're even. We're allowed to overhire for that, but right now we're even. We were over. We have resignations very regularly, so we're even. That's fortunate, but nevertheless, we could be down very quickly. So that's always, and you know that, it's always.
How is that gonna impact your overtime then?
Chief, it impacts the overtime financially. Captain Moranis came into a meeting this afternoon, we were kind of briefing on what we're gonna talk about tonight. And one of the things he talked about is just fills multiple spots. And all of it's forced overtime, not the opportunity for overtime, but forced overtime, which, as you all know, that causes frustration. That's one of the reasons people resign or get frustrated. So it's constant. Claire Tappan calls it evergreen. I learned that term not too long ago. We just don't stop recruiting. We constantly recruit. We have an officer now at full time as a recruiter. Never stops. There's always initiatives. We work with our public information office, our community resource, deputy. We're always using all the resources we have to reach out into the community to try to recruit. So. Yes, sir.
How many resignations have you had so far this year?
Well, come on.
I'm just curious.
See today.
Last time I was with the civil service community, we were 9 overhired in correctional professionals. So that was, so the academy started in August, so we'll say July, right? So in July, we were 9 overhired. So less than 2 months later, we are even.
We've lost 9.
9 in 2 months.
So that's just correctional professional. I mean, we're down to clerical. Those are both leaving the job for different opportunities.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys listened to what I had to say during the finance meeting and incentivizing people that show up to work.
Why don't you have a seat up here?
Sure, they want me to, because I say things I'm not supposed to say.
He does.
Well, now you can kick it.
That's factual.
You can kick him under the table.
There is not.
So,
I think so retention of our employees is just as important as recruitment of employees, right? So how do we retain employees? And it's something that, since I was a new captain in detentions in 2017, it's nothing's changed since 2017. We're almost 8 years later. And in 2017, we had 26 open FTEs when I took over in detentions. There's 26 empty correctional officer positions. Currently with us being 0, it seems like a win, right? But that's a revolving hiring, getting them through training. Maybe somewhere along that process, it's not a fit for them, right? This job is not for everybody. There's, in our detentions so we come from the sworn side, right? We never worked in detentions, a lot of us. And when I became the captain of detentions, it just opens your eyes to a whole new world. I mean, they call in sick, right? In the sworn side, that's not a thing, right? The cops don't call in sick. We come to work and puke out the side of our cars while we're going from call to call with the flu. It's just how it is. They call in sick all the time. So, I talked about in the finance meeting is how do we retain our employees? Like, how do we give good employees incentive to work, right? And I said the term illegal, I didn't really mean illegal in terms of criminal, but I always say I violate some sort of HR laws, and Claire gave me please don't say that out loud, look. But it wasn't, I'm not saying legal, but we've tried over the years brainstorming, and actually right before I left on my vacation, we had 6 call-ins overnight. So, and I sent them a message and I said, look, we need to start really figuring out how do we incentivize people coming to work? How can we, whether it's a bonus, a stipend, days off, and, I don't know. I don't know what it would take, but.
Are they working longer than 8-hour shifts?
Oh, well, they work 12-hour shifts just by standard alone. That's their shift is a standard.
Is that one of the issues?
They were working 16-hour shifts when they're on 8s because they would get ordered for doubles almost every single day. So
I would want
12-hour shift
that.
was a force multiplier. You need less staff to perform the same duties, and that was a 2019, 2018 change that we made after we did some studies.
to lessen, let me interject.
No, you're good.
To lessen the shifts. you need exponentially more staff. Just, that's our situation right now. So when he says rock in a hard place or what have you, that's where we're at. We've had all those conversations, and he has studied every single avenue for changing.
Well, Captain Branks
hours.
must be going crazy, having to constantly train people.
Well, and that's, so you talk about overtime, and I talked about that, right? Every time you train someone, that FTO gets an hour and a half of overtime per day. So, and our FTOs haven't had a break in years, right? So how do you incentivize them other than just, giving them money, but the mental health aspect of it, right? Of constantly, and it was different, and Mr. Morrissey understands, like when we're in a car with somebody, we're constantly have a partner. That even gets a little taxing, but now you have no time for yourself. I mean, those you have kids, when you have a toddler, you never get 2 seconds to yourself. So
How do other counties do it?
I don't know if you just saw the Milwaukee News, right? They just
Yeah.
ordered deputies into their jail, right? We're not at that
There's
point.
worse, worse. There's critical mass right now.
Yes,
So I have a background in workforce development, and I'm on the finance committee, we talked last time, made a couple of suggestions. One of them was that these if it's the same issue all the time, and whatever we're doing would seem to solve the problem, just like the judge said, we have to do something different. So my suggestion at the time was we should get some people in the room, not just the sheriff's department, but maybe some other people can facilitate a day on other ways to look at this thing. Because I'll tell you, my experience in workforce development, you're not the only people having this problem. Your industry isn't the only one having this problem. Everybody has the same problem. And I know of things that other industries are doing to avoid some of the pitfalls that I hear from you. So I'm suggesting that instead of hearing the same issue a year from now, maybe we should get a professional in the room to help a conversation about things you can do to some of the issues that you're running into where for example, you hire somebody and then in 6 weeks, they're gone, right? Well, that shouldn't be happening because those people should know before they come to you that they're not gonna like this work, right?
Yeah, and I think we try our best during the interview process, making sure they understand what they're applying for, but we also do tours of both facilities.
For example,
A lot of it's shift work, right? They're not,
but if they came into you before you hired them and they got to experience the job, like an apprenticeship program or something, right? And they decided that, oh, this isn't for me, before you went through that expensive process. And then, this constant,
so we tried that with the Boys and Girls Club in 2018, don't quote me on the exact date, but we had a program, an employment program that we did with the Boys and Girls Club, where we hired them on a part-time basis, hired like college students, people who were needing jobs. I don't think it's a bad idea for people to come in and shadow. You have CJIS requirements, so you gotta make sure you background them. There's a lot of, they can't just come in and
There's
work in
HR
jail,
issues.
right? But yeah, there's a lot of different issues that will be vetting those people. They can't just, we can't just show up and like, all right, today's gonna be an internship day or an apprentice day. So they're still gonna have to be vetted, and that there's a cost to that, but
what about if our human resources division were to create like a prepper, like a 4-hour full day prepper on what to expect as, working in corrections? And then how to deal with things, because maybe that's what they're struggling with, besides the hours that they're required to work. I mean, I wouldn't like a 10-hour, 12-hour day, but perhaps we set some expectations to say, as far as, mental wellness, these are the things you're gonna encounter and this is how you approach it. So maybe we'd be proactive that way, like enlist Carrie Boss's team or something.
Yeah,
So it's something to
we're
think
open
about.
for any ideas that
Yeah.
would help. I mean, I think that's a great idea, getting people in the room and just brainstorming things. But we do exit interviews. Most of it is, they're just, they thought they could work shift work, but then they do it. There's no way to prepare somebody for third shift, the 12-hour third shift. I mean, they came in as apprenticeship, right? They have this different energy. They're not really doing all the work because they're not allowed to, because you have to be certified to actually, actually do the job of a correctional officer. It's a professional service, right? So there would be no way to hire that person on and actually give them a hands-on, like I can't let them go hands-on with an inmate at any point.
Sure.
So they could just sit and watch, but they're not gonna understand. I mean, they're only,
And, we can have this, just have
Yeah.
another discussion on this, but I think, ideas are really good and share those ideas. But too, I think enlisting, our human services department to see how you can prep some of these people might be an idea. But if you have ideas or things you want us to, just submit them an email to them and, because we do need to address it. And we maybe need to address the shift work and how long the shifts are. And if that means more staff, then we've got to look at it.
The problem is hiring. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So in our budget, you'll never see me ask for a correctional officer as an FTE because we have the ability to overhire them. We can never our numbers can never be what we need them to be anyways, right? So it doesn't make sense to ask for more bodies if you can't fill those positions. If that makes sense, right? If you
Right.
go to 8-hour shifts, you're gonna have to at least increase your entire workforce by 1/3.
okay, but maybe then you won't have a revolving door and taxing administration and the training and overseeing and then running short because people are calling in. So it's kind of a double edged.
When we
When
have
did you go
more
to
of a
12-hour shift?
We
Right, I mean,
we have more of a
that's the
revolving
issue.
door in 8-hour shifts.
Right.
Because you have more work, you're getting ordered in a lot more.
Okay,
And so again,
I don't think it's anything we're gonna
yeah,
solve here
right.
tonight.
It's not, but I like what I was thinking though, is like when I talk about incentivizing those that show up for work in that session, and I was listening to a podcast about, it was a leadership podcast, and there was a caller that called in who said he got a daily stipend for showing up for work, and I'm like, and he's in the trades, right? So in the trades,
It's called your salary.
right?
Right.
Well, on top of his salary, he gets a daily stipend. I'm thinking, all right, well, it piqued my interest, and I thought, okay, well, what would that number be that we could actually budget, right? And I thought 30-day window, okay? You do either a daily stipend amount, and if you make it to 30 days, you get paid out that stipend, right? So 30 days, no call-ins, no missed work, you get paid out the stipend. So, and Mr. Morrissey understands that in our line of work in law enforcement, not all, even I guess everybody, right? The new generation doesn't really necessarily care about money. So can you offer them we don't have comp time. In the sheriff's department, we have no comp time, but something that isn't called comp time. I don't know. And this is where Claire will give me that,
Face.
but so how could that bank, instead of it being a monetary bank, it would be a time bank, right? And they would be able to take an extra day off here or there, whatever that may be. So there's ways I think that we can capture all generations, because some are gonna want the money and some are gonna want the time, but so it was just something I thought of as I was listening to this guy that got $100 a day stipend. I'm like, I want that job. Oh, man.
Yeah, and in finance, I didn't hear you comment about you wanting an exact number on OT. I was listening to the streaming meeting.
That I didn't, I can't,
Can't talk about that. Go ahead.
I'll be super quick here. I just talked to a gentleman last week who has a trucking company down south in Alabama, southern Alabama. And he has basically said, he goes, I got tired of dealing with this so much. He goes, I'm giving everybody a big bonus at the end of the year. He goes, if your truck doesn't have any dents or scratches or flat tires, dents, and you show up every day, you get this big thing. And then he's figured out some way to be like, if this happens, if that happens, then it diminishes it down. Now that's an incentive, but I'm like, okay, he's like, he goes, we're 6 months in, and he says, and none of my trucks have dents in them. So it's like, you never know.
I love the idea, and I've come up with things like that. It's just, again, not illegal, whatever. I somehow, some
Right.
things violate human resource codes, and so I don't know, like, and that's what we don't have the answer, and every time we come up with some sort of answer, we're met with a little bit of resistance.
So
But
we have to keep working on it.
yeah.
So,
Mark, he wants to continue.
we're talking about one. Mr. Garcia, you had something. Do you want to say something?
What are we doing for mental health for the correctional officers now? Or what are we doing currently for them to stay? Are we doing anything other than just? We're trying.
Unfortunately, this is definitely his baby.
Yeah, so last year, in 23, I asked for a mental health day, so mandatory mental health day for all employees. They get one shift a year. They have to make an appointment with a provider. And whether they actually go in and talk to that provider is up to them, but they have to actually get in there and sign in to that provider's lobby, right? Now, whether they stay or go, that's up to them. That's kind of the way that this has been kind of transformed throughout our industry. But so they can go sign in. If they stay and talk, they stay and talk for their 15, 30 minutes. They have the rest of their day off. If they don't stay and talk, they just sign in and they want to go, they still have their mental health. Right. So it's an opportunity for them to at least have the opportunity to go to a provider that is, not their choice. It's a mutual choosing between, the employers and employees, but
And it's virtual.
it could be. I mean, there's not a lot of virtual visits anymore, but so we have an app that's called Cortico. It's by Lexipol. Cortico is a wellness app. So all of our peer support's on there. They have all of these different resources, not only for mental health providers. They have it has nutrition, wellness, Echelon Fitness. I don't know if you heard of Echelon Fitness, but the Echelon Fitness is part of this app. It's for their families. So my daughter's away at college. I just got her up on the app, and she's been using it almost daily, just for the stuff that there's a lot of self-help. There's sleep, ways to improve your sleep. There's all kinds of things on this app. So that's one thing that we pushed out for wellness. The other thing that we implemented was called the Smart Dollar by Ramsey Solutions. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Dave Ramsey, but Ramsey Solutions, we use a Smart Dollar for all of our employees, everybody and their families. They have an opportunity for financial wellness, right? It's a way for them to be not only set up for the now, but the future. Right? Look forward to retirement someday and have something other than debt or, whatnot. So and again, I teach wellness in the academy, and the financial piece of wellness is so important because if you don't have money, or you're in dire straits, or you're just not good with managing that causes so much stress, and then you have to come here and do an extremely stressful job. So that's something that we implemented those things at the exact same time in January of 2024, early this year.
That's good.
And that's just the sheriff's department or county as a whole?
It's the sheriff's
It's the
department,
sheriff's department.
and we have 50%, 46%
Participate.
usage rate on the Smart Dollar side. We haven't had as much success with the Lexipol Cortico app, but I think they're sick of seeing my emails. So I try to find more change agents or people that will champion the causes.
The Cortico, I'm not gonna lie, I'm
Go
a
ahead.
bit of a naysayer. We've been friends a long time, so I don't hold any punches. It's just whatever. So he fights me and explains it to me. Everyone here understands that financial wellness it's like a drug addiction. If you can't get your head above water, you can't get well emotionally, and it's a brutal place to be. And to get the use of this that we're getting, almost 50%, I think that's phenomenal. They really do. And, we never let up the pushing of it. And, to take on that little bit of expense, but where we were able to do it, so we did it. The mental health stuff is so important that when we had to do something, because we weren't, it's a big expenditure, what we're trying to do with the mental health day, and we get that, but it's so important. Still aren't letting up on that, but, to be able to do that, I was very excited about it.
So our counterparts, KP, they do an amazing job with the employee mental health. They have an in-house mental health specialist. So that is already something, like I said in finance, that you will see in our 2025 budget. There is no doubt that's going to be at the top of the list. We were told to be mean and lean, using Judge Wilk's term, right? We were told to be really lean on what our ask, and that hasn't a heftier price tag, because not only does it come with a FTE, but it comes with affording those employees with 1 day off a year, which has a cost, right? An overtime cost for backfill. But it also costs for the provider that we'd have to.
But it's employee retention.
100%. I mean, I don't want to say too much. Things.
More?
I got a lot to say, but they're probably suggestions, so we could probably talk at another time.
Sure, we absolutely.
I'd like to talk to you guys.
Whatever, come back. Whatever you want to do.
Because what you're bringing up, I would have loved for there to be somebody there other than another officer.
Yeah.
That's trained mental health to talk to. Right.
And the chaplains only go so far. Not everybody's religious, right? And some people don't trust the religion portion. So the chaplains are always there for everybody, but that's not an everybody thing.
Put up a time with them.
We keep going.
Yes.
Money. It's always about money. Everything I have to talk about is about money. US Marshal contract. You and I discussed that, let everybody else in on that. We worked quite a while to negotiate that. I believe you talked about that.
Bobby and finance. Yeah.
Okay, so our US Marshal contract, we were receiving $70 a day per federal inmate per day. And I worked a pretty long time actually to get that negotiated. And we're coming down with the wire. And I believe that we have a very good relationship at this point with US Marshals. It was a little bit tenuous. That's because we're a little crabby. We wanted 20 years at $70, so it was ridiculous. So when we were getting close, I postponed the thing, and I contacted every sheriff in Wisconsin that houses federal inmates, and I believe that we were $5 above anybody else. So we were at $105 a day. Maybe I'm not, but we're at the peak. We're at half dollar she'd give us. It was 105 a day per body, and then for our reimbursement for our deputy time, it's $47.95 an hour, and I think we were low 30s initially. So we were at 40. I had her up to 47, and I finally just said, I feel like we're all friends now. Is there any more on the table? Am I leaving $1 on the table? She says $47.95 is the lowest I can give you. I said, please get that approved. So we signed the contract. So that has gone up quite a bit, and that was effective August 1, I believe. August 1. So right after we finished negotiating the contract, it went live a couple of days later. So that's good. You asked what our problems are. High levels of calls for service. We're short everywhere all the time, and it's not because we're missing staff on the road. We had a meeting with Summers yesterday. I wasn't there, but I had a meeting with Summers yesterday. And just prior to that meeting, we have 2 contract cars in the village of Summers, and there were 2 tenuous calls at one time. Each village deputy was at a different call, and there were 2 additional deputies at each call. So that's 4 extra deputies on those calls that are not in elsewhere in the county. That's the kind of calls for service we've had. We've had calls with 4 cars involved in one accident. We've had rollovers. We've had a lot of 1080s or high-speed chases.
And you've had, what I've seen from the scanner, you've had ongoing thefts occurring while accidents are occurring, which means it ties up the one deputy for 1 to 4 hours, whereas the accidents. So we're over our contract limits, but I'm assured that Captain Klinkhammer is tracking all of that.
He's working hard. He always does. I'm sure if you want to come back to any of that, that's fine. In our detention setting, we have Captain Brandis here. I would like to talk about something. the judge was here, so this isn't all finished up yet, so I probably wouldn't talk about this, but since he was just here, this program, our MAT program, medication assisted treatment, substance use disorder individuals, that are in our detention setting. We're always looking for money, right? So, we're ending one grant right now, and we're submitting another grant this week. We're looking for money to continue that MAT program and grow it. So we've met repeatedly and met with everyone from public health and behavioral health and all over the county. We went to a conference where we were able to listen to a couple other counties talk. Winnebago was phenomenal. I had to rearrange my brain a little bit, the way I perceive this stuff. And we've expanded the program, and now we're all 3 ADA approved medications we'll be utilizing in our gym, in our detention setting. So we're growing that. We actually utilize 4, but those 3 were the main ones. And that enables us qualifies us to apply for other grants. And so we're trying to find money everywhere we can.
And are you looking at, for the opioid addictions, money from the settlement?
Not yet.
The supplement,
If
but-
there,
Okay,
if that were a possibility, if we needed that money, I would not hesitate to ask for it. I've asked for it already in the past and been successful. But with the advancements I guess the terminology, I'm like the judge, it's not my thing, right? So, but realistically, I've learned so much about it, antagonist, agonist, and all the way all these other medications work. But the reality is that all the other agencies are more progressive. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give these folks the best treatment we can with what we have. So we're trying to find money where we can, do the best we can by them. So I think we're really light years. I think we're doing really well. And I'm looking forward to the next year as to where that's going to go. That being said, it's kind of a high note, but I can tell you that as far as the initiatives on here, that's so it should last a short amount of time. Everyone knows about the Citizens Academy. You know what that is? Citizens Academy is we bring individuals from the community in, and we run a little makeshift academy that lasts starting October 23rd. We're just now starting to take applications. So if you're interested in that, meets in the evenings. Regularly, you go through the little mini academy where you learn do ride-alongs. You get to see the jails. You get to see what we really do everywhere. Get to utilize some firearms, learn some law. There will be presentations from just about everybody. It's fantastic, and that's starting back up. So it's very, very early on in that. So those applications will be coming out. Everyone knows about my Our Canine Initiative, or our fundraising initiative. So what we've done there is we brought the plushy things, the little fuzzy things, challenge coins and whatever, swag, t-shirts, and that's been very helpful. We make money with that, but we utilize that to give attention to it, right? And we've been blessed to have some really nice donors from the community, but to really push. Sure.
On that note, and Mr. Garcia, what you asked is that we are getting a mental health canine. So we had a donation from a citizen that is, so a support canine will be entering ours. And what was the last update from Jose? Like when?
5 months.
5 months. So once that letter is ready. But yeah, so
wonderful.
just ring my bell.
Oh, yeah,
He
for
said
sure.
canine, that we will have emotional support for our employees. It'll be internal. I mean, obviously it'll
The
probably
new
get
plushie.
new plushie.
New
right?
plushie.
It's gonna be underneath the library. One that you,
It won't be scary like the other ones.
Australian doodle.
Aw.
Somewhat,
But,
anyway, sorry.
no, beautiful. Thank you. But, you know, I've come up with these ideas, and it caused a lot of work for a lot of people. So I'd like to thank everyone, the sheriff's officer tolerating me. And poor ladies at the front counter were just stuffed animals everywhere for a while. Canine fundraiser. So we've got it on the calendar now. So we are doing our large scale, family friendly canine fundraiser at the Parkway Chateau on October 13th. And it's going to be all the goodies that everybody wants to bring to their parties. So we're going to have a big bash. All the dogs are going to be there, handlers, stuff. We're going to have folks from Tops where we train our dogs. They're coming down. So we're reaching out to the community. Have a lot of folks come and help with it. We're trying to keep the costs low. We're trying to maximize, resources.
I'll help sign you up.
Thank you, thank you. So it's exciting. I don't know if anyone else was excited about this, but I was pretty excited about it.
Doesn't hurt it.
What's that, sir?
Go ahead. Doesn't care anybody else is excited.
For the first time, the DNR and the Kenosha County Sheriff's Office are partnering. And today, 9 of us got our certifications to be hunter safety instructors. So, there are other courses locally and around, but there's never very many. And I have a whole bunch of sons. So every time I tried to get a kid into that thing, I was very frustrated. So I said, well, I'm gonna learn how to teach it. So that's what we're doing. And we're running our first class on the 17th. That's when it starts. So it's on our Facebook. It's on the DNR website. You can log up. It's $10 a head. And we're training. We have like 15 signed up already. So we're looking forward to it. It's not real expensive to do it, but it's
a good community engagement activity.
it has a big benefit to the community.
Yeah.
People hunt, and that's it's part of our culture here. And safety with firearms is so important. So the opportunity to do this, and we're teaching tree stands and the whole thing. So it's gonna be a fun day. So just want to let everybody know that we're doing that, and if they're interested in it, please sign up. And that's mostly what I have. I just wanted to really touch about the MAT and that initiative and all the help that we've received in the community, because it's been a lot of work to get that squared away. Yes, sir.
Do you guys have a current number on how much you guys have raised with the K9?
You want me to say it on live TV? It's a good number. We're really happy with it. Tell you later. Come to the event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I don't have a total for you right now, but I have a ballpark. It's pretty good, but the big deal is that number is gonna cut in half in about 2 seconds, because we are gonna need a couple cans replaced in about a year. So just so you know, that we've been working so hard to raise that money, because we're gonna have $40,000 to $50,000 bill on any time. So that money's gonna be gone. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really good. It's a good start, and then we can fine tune it, you and I, and
Sure.
Justin, as we go forward, so that it's not too much work for you, but at least gives us an update on what your opportunities and challenges are in the department, whether it's financial or well-being. So
It's both.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
I just got one question. You talked about Summers, the calls for assistance there and being, I've heard about other examples in the county as well too. And just curious, are you tracking that? Is that additional cost to those municipalities that that you have contracts with, or how is that?
Contracts, and I know I'll get interrupted, and I hope I do. The reality is the way the contracts work, we cover so many hours of overtime up front. That's 60 hours. And once they reach that 60 hours, the hours of overtime that village utilizes, they're billed for it. This is the first year we've ever actually done that billing, because we were that way to track it. Well, we fixed that, we remedied that, now we're doing that. But that's for their village squads. The other squads that are coming, they're not being billed extra money for that. So that's.
I've asked them to track that, and then we're gonna get together in January to reassess just how much coverage we're providing to the other municipalities. Take Summers for an example.
I don't want to interrupt you. I guess I interrupt you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be with you. We're not picking on Summers. I'm not picking on Summers.
It's
The
everybody.
reality is that, you're out west, you're in Twin Lakes, I think,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Salem Lakes, same difference. There's a lot of calls
Yeah.
for service in Salem Lakes, so we can track this more effectively. And then, I'm not an actuary, but these gentlemen are really figuring out a way to hone that down, and with our,
And we're looking at everybody, so it isn't just Summers.
We're
Summers
able
was
to
using it as an
figure that out,
example.
right.
But Captain Klinkerhammer has a report and has the capability now to track that data. Because I think annually we should look at the contracts. We have a responsibility, because if they were to have their own police departments, because they're a village, they'd be spending a lot more money, in my opinion, than the current contracts that they're paying for. So we want to make it fair and equitable for both sides, but we've got to make sure that, as villages grow, so the contracts need to grow as well.
And, and I understand that. And if we're short 6 deputies and it's a perpetual thing, and we've got contracts that we're fulfilling with them, well, then that's our problem.
It exacerbates.
Right. That's not their problem. That's our problem. And it's like, that feels like we've taken on a few of other people's problems which is great because it helps the community out, it keeps costs low, but then it just concentrates the problem with you guys.
And then they get questioned at budget time, why their overtime is so high. So now we'll be able to look at some data to say,
Oh,
well,
that's good.
this is where the resources are going.
We started working, but that's part of what the federal contracts are about. Getting realistic numbers on the budgets, how much we're actually bringing in, because if there's a $1.5 million line item that we're bringing in $400,000, who are we benefiting? I mean, it's just the taxpayers need to know the truth, right? Obviously, everybody wants to know that. So that's what we're working at, and getting the numbers up is just part of that equation, right? So just trying to be more realistic and have things a little bit more transparent, I guess is the word.
Okay.
And that's why I've asked you all to attend our meetings, just to make us apprised of, again, opportunities, challenges, and where we can assist.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there currently a task force sheriff that works on allocating the opioid money
A task force?
or group?
What do you mean by
There's a
allocating?
committee.
So
There's
I'm part of the committee.
Right, but there's a committee that talks about
Opioid
where that
settlement
money
funds
can go, right?
committee.
Okay,
And what that committee does is, it talks, listens to the community. It's, look, it's part of, there's been some issues because a lot of people have been coming and wanting to talk, and this is not an open forum. There are other ways to do that. There's other meetings. It's all supposed to be on the county website. Hopefully it is. But you come and we have conversations, try to find the needs, and the folks in there all are in this, like he keeps talking about, FOSS. That's sort of thing. She runs behavioral health. And that office down there, they're the ones that have that information. But coming to these meetings are folks from the hospitals, behavioral health centers, the nonprofits locally. So it's really full of good information. And we've received some requests. It's not necessarily the place to do it, but when they send the proposals, then that's how it gets worked on. So that's going right now. There's a couple nonprofits locally that have pretty large asks, actually. So we make a recommendation to county exec, and then it comes on through.
I just didn't want people to leave here thinking that there's this big pot of money that nobody's looking at.
No, we're I'm trying to spend it.
And Judge Wilk would like that too.
Sure, to give you, so Chief Patton or representatives there,
Right.
Chief Smetana, he's there, I'm there regularly. So we're all part of it. We're all trying to help. And
Mhm.
and so, any other questions? Always feel free to email any of us or all of us anytime. Thank you so
very
much. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. We have, the next item on the agenda is resolution to approve the appointment of Sean Douglas to serve as a member of the local emergency planning committee group 5, industry tier 2. Thank you for being so patient.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Sergeant Chris Hanna. This is Mr. Sean Douglas. Bring forth a resolution for Sean Douglas to serve as a member of the local emergency planning committee under Group 2 industry. Mr. Douglas comes to us volunteering for this position. He is a representative of Meyer Distribution, who is a reporting facility here in Kenosha County. They also participate in the Kenosha County Community Organizations Active in Disaster and are active participants in that also. Mr. Douglas brings forth 10 years of work volunteering with the Zion Emergency Services and Disaster Agency, along with 10 years of working in the industry regarding ammonia systems and reporting to the EPA and OSHA rules and regulations.
Questions? Move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any questions for Mr. Douglas? No?
I have a question.
Yes.
What did you work with in Zion?
Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
Okay, and you were there as an employee?
I was there as an employee, and then I volunteered at Zion Emergency Services and Disaster Agency. I was a volunteer there, kind of like a city employee, but I just didn't get paid. And the sole purpose of ASDA, as it were, is to help with any incidents that happened with the nuclear plant that was there. And since that's since closed down, and they no longer facilitate any of the emergency management portion of that. But they still respond to like fires, crime scenes, do security, blocking off traffic, just helping out the community.
I always wondered what they were. Those are the guys that drive around with like full lights on their cars.
Oh, yeah, they are volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Youth and Governance, how do you vote? Committee,
Aye.
any opposed? Resolution carries. Welcome. Thank
On
you.
board.
Again, thank you for being patient.
No problem.
Next is item 12, resolution to approve the probationary cabaret license Sit and Bull Tavern at 39,600 Bloomfield Road, Town of Wheatland, Powers Lake. Captain Klinkhammer.
All right, good evening. I'm here to present the cabaret, the probationary cabaret license for approval for Sit and Bull, I should say. I noted as I was reviewing this that the alcohol license that was included with the application from June is expired. We have not received any information that they have not gotten a new one, but I am not able to confirm that at this time. But they have been open. I'm assuming that they have one, and I can confirm that and let you know. So I'm not sure if you want to proceed or not.
I have two, so I have that issue that I noted, and then also the notation that he didn't have an occupancy permit. And I think we should defer it until we can verify the liquor license and the occupancy permit. Anybody else have questions, or I would need a motion to defer it? And I see that he's not here this evening.
So we're not sure if they have anything right now, is what you're saying?
I'm not 100% positive. I'm assuming because the bar's open that they have, the application was submitted before their license expired and then submitted after. So I'm assuming that they have a license through Wheatland. And the deputy didn't indicate in his report whether they posted the new license. So
I personally would like to see Mr. Patel come to our meeting and in front of the group say that yes, he does have these two requirements in order to get his regular cabaret license.
I think suspending's prudent. I'd make a motion to suspend that.
This is probationary though,
Yes.
not regular, right?
Right, it's probationary. So I don't think we should move forward to the regular because he hasn't satisfied all the
it's not a
requirements.
regular.
Pardon?
Right,
It's for the probationary.
It's for the probationary, yeah,
Right.
but he's not meeting all the requirements, even for a probationary.
I wouldn't blame it on him. I would blame it on me.
No, I'm
So
blaming
there's-
you.
I mean, we don't have the current license. I didn't notice that. It's the second time this has happened. But the
We can
license
just defer it.
expired in
Just go to the
June.
board, so final approval.
Uh-huh,
So I'm not concerned about the liquor license, like, yeah, I think he probably has it, but what about the occupancy permit?
he was supposed to get that, correct?
No, so the deputy put in his report that a inspection by the county is required.
The fire department,
It's not required.
not
For
for
the cabaret.
probation, but for
For-
a regular it is.
For the cabaret ordinance.
It
So
says
probation-
any health, and this is where that whole ordinance just needs to be cleaned up because it states it's vague, but it says that they have to have see here. They have to follow all health. Let's see. Conditions may only be imposed where findings of fact upon evidence presented have been made in which address the safety, health, and welfare of the general population, including noise and crowd disturbances. So, I mean,
No, I don't see where that.
you could
says
say
any of that.
occupancy is included in there because the fire inspector has to come and inspect the
We've never
place.
included that.
I know, and that's where this
So-
ordinance has to be.
So how are we
cleaned up.
gonna hold him to it?
So-
We've never held him to it before.
So could we approve this contingent upon both of those being provided to the board prior to the board vote? I mean, I don't want to hold him up for another, because he'd have to come back through this committee, right?
Well,
And
yeah, it would be deferred until our October 3rd meeting. And then he would show that he's got all the required items to get his probationary. He doesn't have anything on the schedule pending. He just He wanted the license because he occasionally does benefits. And this is where, and it's not you, Captain Klinkhammer, it's the way the ordinance is written and it's unclear. And that's where we need to,
So the reason I sent it through is because I reviewed the ordinance and our checklist for the deputy says inspection. I think he thought it was a building inspection. It's the deputy's inspection of the facility.
Mhm.
We've never required that before. And that my intent was to testify about that at this meeting, because I knew that would be pointed out in his report.
Mhm.
So we don't require a building inspection. We don't require a
But the
fire
lang-
department inspection.
I understand that, and that's where we need to change the language, because I did review it with Cardamom, not specifically about this, but it
Okay.
talks about the safety and welfare, and typically you get an occupancy permit and the fire department comes in to ensure that it's safe for the public. So that's where it's just gray, and we don't need to get into this tonight. If the committee wants to move it forward, I'll be fine with it, but I'm just not happy the way the ordinance is currently written, even though that you've done it the same way for however long.
I think the middle ground here is maybe a contingent acceptance. I like your idea, actually. And ensure that he shows up, next board meeting and can prove what you are indicating that he has. Because otherwise if we don't approve it now, then it's gonna have to be, what, would have to be brought up next month. And,
Mhm.
if it's contingently approved, give him.
It is probation, so.
Yeah,
if
it is
he-
probation, and just make sure he shows up next time and he has to prove, the occupancy permit or whatever else. I don't have a problem with
Do
that.
you want him to come to this meeting or the
They wanted
board
to,
meeting?
they wanted to
Well,
move to
to
the
the point,
board.
if we contingently
Board,
approve it now, it would have to be the board,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean,
I believe he
personally, I don't even
offered-
need him to
He
be
was
there.
advised of the meeting time.
And agreed to it verbally, and I sent him an email as he requested.
Any other comments from the board, from the committee?
So was the license that was attached, because in the report, it says it's, good through the end of June,
Yeah.
2025. So I'm wondering if, and that's where the confusion's coming from, because the one that's attached is through 2024.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I'm saying that according to the deputy, the one that was posted in the bar department expires in June of 20.
Okay. But it was just written differently in the report.
Yeah, it was right here. This first page.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so through 25.
701, yeah, from Wheatland. Mhm.
The deputy saying whatever he did, it was valid through 25.
Right, according to the
Right.
report, right, but what the image that was attached
Right.
is.
Which is similar to what we had the
Right.
last.
So I think,
This is where it is up here that it was confusing. It was what I had noted. Where it says that it's through June 30th of 2024, what he
So
had
I would say-
posted.
I would say based on the deputy's report, they have a posted liquor license through 2025.
Right,
okay. And I feel like that can be, verified before the next, before it comes
I
to the
can-
county board.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what was the other,
Yeah.
the inspection? I mean, I've reviewed a few of these things, and I think it's just always been the sheriff's inspection that's come through on this. And I
I
understand.
don't know that the town requires an occupancy when a change of owner happened, and that's why this is happening.
I read the other ordinance pertaining to that. It's not real clear. And this is where, these ordinances, we need to make it so it's clear. So that, because he didn't know that he needed an occupancy permit. I leave it up to the committee.
I'd move to approve contingent upon sheriff's department providing us that if he needs an occupancy permit, he has it, and that he has a valid liquor license.
I'll second that.
And that it's shown to the board or brought to the board, or you could shows it to you and you can show it to us at some point.
I can email it to you and you can distribute it to the board.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Now I'll second it. Oh,
Then you were either one.
Committee, how do you vote on this? Or youth and governance, I'm sorry, how do you vote?
So is I like?
Yes,
gonna
you agree.
move it, or
Yeah,
like,
we're gonna move it to the county board. Okay. Committee,
Aye.
any nays? Passes.
How do we communicate that with them? What we're looking
He's
for?
gonna talk to,
I'll handle it.
Thank you, Captain. Click.
thank you. And Captain, just so you understand, I have the issue with the way the ordinance is written, not with what the
I
sheriff
understand.
department.
I'm not a huge fan of that ordinance either,
Yeah,
but the, oh, you're sitting there.
So
Yeah.
comments are welcome.
Yeah.
yeah.
There is some work to be done. I think
Mhm.
there's communication that needs to happen with people applying for these and the restrictions that they're under, and the clerk's office is handling that.
Mhm.
So yeah, there could be some work done to this ordinance.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do as a committee to clean it up, and we'll have you review it and make sure that you're good with it.
Okay. One of the things I always ask our police department is it enforceable and can you easily enforce this? So that would be the perspective I would welcome from the sheriff's department.
The music after dark, there's no ordinance citation that we would write and we shut it down. So there's our deputies, we don't deal with it a ton. So every deputy completely familiar with all of the violations that can happen on a cabaret license, probably not. But
Right.
I'm making sure our supervisors are, so miscommunications.
Yeah, well, this one is just weird
Yeah.
anyway, so, thank you. Hello,
Evening Supervisors, I'm Captain Steve Baranis. I believe I have the last item on your agenda.
yeah, let me read it for the record. A resolution for Kenosha County Sheriff's Department request to renew the operating agreement with Wisconsin Community Services, doing business as WCS.
The Sheriff's Department is requesting to renew the operation agreement with WCS, Wisconsin Community Services, to manage the intoxicated driver program. The Sheriff's Department has been partnering with WCS for over 20 years to manage that program. They would continue to provide support to the citizens that are referred to the program by the courts. This agreement, it states that it will start January 1st. We've been doing this for 20 years. Fortunately, we did not get a contract signed before this. It was brought to our new fiscal services manager, realized that we had no existing contract for this year. So that's why this contract would go through December 31st. This already is a budget item that was in our budget for the 2024 budget, so there is no impact to the current budget as it sits. I'll entertain any questions.
Yes, any questions from the committee?
So this contract is for the current year?
Current year, yes. So
What are we doing for the next year?
we'll work out our next one.
So we would have built into this contract where it's automatically.
No, we
renewed?
have not built a new one. So I mean, we would start.
It'll be coming forward. They asked for an increase.
Oh, okay.
We denied an increase, so it's
Okay.
it'll be the same next year.
Any other questions?
Approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Youth and governance, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes, thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to stay.
You want to
Motion
stay?
to adjourn.
Is there a second? Come on.
I'm gonna deny it.
But I'll second it.
All in favor?